Is this the place right here?
Seems that way.
Yeah, it says Lay Jet I Mate Law Offices. That must be the lawyer's name.
Excuse me. We're here to talk to someone about a legal matter.
What are you shredding there, Mr. Layjet? Why, they're ledges. Now, don't you worry your pretty little head about that. My name's actually Bartholomew Burticus III. At your service.
You got your letter?
Well, you must be those people that live in that smoldering pile of rubble back there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My condolences. So what kind of trouble did you folks run into?
What makes us think you ain't in on it?
Yeah, you were at the scene of the crime, so you do the time. Well, now, look here. You can accuse me of being a rubble chaser. But a riveteer demolitionist, well, that's downright slander.
Ah, so you think that the Riveteers did it too?
Look, you give me some of that gold there, and you will have what we call attorney-client privilege. And with that, what you tell me stays right here, I say. Oh, it's like Vegas. It's against the rules, and breaking the rules is against our brokering hospitalities. Oh, well, that seems pretty reasonable.
What exactly makes you think we've got any gold? Our house just got blown up. All of our stuff is gone.
Well, your friend over there has count 'em, 2 briefcases. And I reckon only thing folks carrying around in briefcases these days is gold, contraband, and legal documents. And y'all don't strike me as the lawyering type.
Yeah, it's got gold in it, and the other one's got God knows what.
Why don't you just tell them your whole life story?
Okay, it all started when I was born. Now hold on there, son. Hold on there. I don't need to know all that. Just give me 100 gold and let's take a look in that other briefcase. Well, I declare, I don't reckon ever seen anything like this before. Looks like something that was salvaged from the bottom parts of the city. Could be real old. I tell you what. I know a guy who might know what in tarnation this could be. He's down in the proving grounds. You tell him I sent you. And remember, I work for you now. So if you need anything further, y'all come back now, you hear?
Okay.
Later, Mr. Layjet. Welcome to the Proving Grounds, the only Magic the Gathering podcast that proves you don't need a moderator to have fun. I have with me Dave.
Hey.
Moderator Dave is out on assignment this weekend, so we'll see how this goes. See if we can get the carts to come off the track. What do you think, Dave?
I think they already are.
All right, so what have you been doing this week?
It's a big video game news week, so I've mostly just been paying attention to that. I haven't
There-
played much Magic or done much Magic-related stuff.
There has been quite a few new Summer Games Fest stuff. I am the opposite. I have not been paying attention much to that like I usually would. I've been paying attention to a lot of Magic, particularly the Pioneer format. A lot of changes coming up. We'll see how that shakes out after all these bans that just happened. What do you think about those?
I think that they were needed. That's about, about my thoughts on it.
Yeah, so we have kind of discussed in depth the Winota and why we think that Winota should be banned. So we don't need to touch too much on that. It was just a very powerful card that enabled some very quick, fast turn 4 wins. So that was banned. I think it was up in, I don't know, 30-40% of the meta. I don't have an exact number.
Hey, you're the Pioneer guy. If you don't have the answer, I definitely don't have the answer.
Well, suffice it to say, it was kind of taking over the format. The other one that was kind of surprising to me was Expressive Iteration was banned in Pioneer.
I'm not that surprised by it.
Well, that makes one of us. I like to think of Expressive Iteration as the most powerful fair card in existence.
I don't know how you think that card is fair.
Look, it does exactly what it says, and there's not really a way to exploit it or break it.
You do know that every card does exactly what it says, right? That is how the card game works.
Yes, but the developers of the game have something intended, and then maybe they print a card later that then people can use the new cards to exploit the old methods of play. And this is not the case with Expressive Iteration. It is.
I do actually think that there's part of Expressive Iteration that they did not intend.
Okay, what do you think?
I do not think they meant for the exile card to be able to be a land that is played.
Oh, yes. Which subsequently is what makes the card even less of a problem, because you don't want to play Expressive Iteration on turn 2, because that means you would have already made your land drop. So you kind of wait till turn 3 to play it, and by that time, the other person has the ability to counterspell pretty fluently.
Okay, yeah, but there's only one color in counterspells, and that card's an issue for every other color. And it's still, even if you're playing counters, it's not really the card you want to have to counter.
I countered every single time.
I'm not saying you shouldn't counter it. I'm saying it's not what you want to have to use your counters on.
But on the other hand, if it's a must counter, then it is very powerful. Honestly, when you look at Pioneer as a whole in the format as a whole, that power level of the card is way too powerful for Pioneer. To be completely honest,
yeah,
it is probably the top 5 most powerful draw spells even in Modern.
Yeah, if it didn't give you the opportunity to play that land out of exile, I think it's a perfectly balanced card.
Mm-hmm.
I think if the exiled card can only be a spell, then it is exactly where it needs to be.
Right.
My guess is if they make an alchemy change of it, that will be the alchemy change of it.
Oh,
how they've been.
You may cast a spell from exile, not play a card. Yeah.
Yep.
That would make sense, and that would again power it down, because you're probably not going to play that card on turn 3 because you just don't, or turn 2 because you don't, or 3 because you don't have the mana, right?
Yeah.
In most cases, I mean, you could ramp to it or do whatever. It was interesting the reason that they gave for banning Expressive Iteration. They want to kind of help power down Izzet decks, because there are different Izzet decks in the format. One's the Izzet Phoenix, and one is the Thing in the Ice deck, and then there's just an Izzet Control deck. Also Izzet Prowess started popping up too. And rather than ban something like Treasure Cruise, which is bafflingly still a card in Pioneer when it's banned and everything else. Well, not Legacy, but not Vintage. I think it might. Anyway, the Izzet decks all have that in common. The Phoenix deck might use Dig Through Time, whereas the Thing in the Ice might use Treasure Cruise. But every single one of them uses the Expressive Iteration. And with the banning of Winota, obviously somebody's going to have to rise up, and it's going to be those Izzet decks, right? So
the thing is, too, though, I don't actually think Izzet Phoenix needs it. It helps, but I don't think it's a key. I don't think Izzet Phoenix disappears because Expressive Iteration is banned.
Surely not, because this weekend there was an NRG $5,000 or $5K tournament that the Izzet Phoenix deck won.
Yeah,
without
there's no reason for. Izzet Phoenix was fine before Expressive Iteration was even around. So,
right, and that's my point, where it's actually kind of a fair card, but it's just too powerful. I think, but
I just don't think. I don't think you can go 3 cards deep and then be able to play 2 of them on turn 3 without getting. When you break it down like that, it's turn 3, I play Expressive Iteration, I get 2 cards, I play both of them, the land and whatever spell, cantrip I draw.
It's a 1 mana spell, most likely.
Yeah, because you're getting to pick, too. So it's it's not like it's random or anything like that. Chances are in 3 cards you're going to be able to get a cantrip, you're going to be able to get a land, and you're going to be able to pitch whatever else you have in there.
That's very fair. I mean, it's not fair. I mean, it's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Either way, I do think it will be good for the format. I'm just hoping that I use Expressive Iteration a lot in Modern, so I'm hoping they don't go back and like kill it there. But it would kind of be worthy of it, because it does kind of. It's one of those things where it's not like wildly apparent that that's why you won the game, but it's definitely why you won the game.
Right. Thankfully, Modern is a whole different power level.
Right.
I'm not sure it's as dangerous there as it is in Pioneer.
No, I think as your card pool goes up, the effectiveness goes down. No.
Add to the fact that your Modern decks typically only have 18 lands, you're not even guaranteed to get a land in your 3 cards.
That is true.
Unless you're playing Control and you have 27 lands, and then your deck probably sucks anyway, so who cares?
Or you're playing Yorion, you got 38 for some reason. Let's see. What else is on the dock? Also to note that the Pioneer ban list mirrors the Explorer ban list. So, well, if it's banned in Pioneer, it is banned in Explorer. So they went ahead and banned Expressive Iteration in Explorer as well. So
people enjoy your.
I don't think that's.
Do they need to make announcements about what they ban in Explorer?
Well, if you're an Explorer player, enjoy your. Did they give wild cards for this? I don't know if they do, because it's not banned in Standard. It's not banned in Standard, and it's not banned in Historic. I wonder. I haven't logged in since the ban, actually, so I don't know if I got.
I know in the past. I don't know about Pioneer, because Pioneer doesn't exist on there. Right. I know in the past when something got banned in Historic and not in Standard, they still gave you the wild cards. Because there's a chance you use the wild cards to make a Historic deck.
I see. There we go.
Also, it's an uncommon. I probably wouldn't even notice if they gave me the wild cards.
Probably not. And they might not even care to. People don't complain about that one. In other news, Magic the Gathering Online, it's turning 20, so make sure you log in because you're going to get some play points. So if you have an account there, then you will get play points. If you did not create your account before June 7th, you will not get play points. Play points are used to like enter tournaments and stuff.
Do they ever sweep accounts on MTGO, or is like my account that I haven't logged into in 5 years still there?
It's probably still there. I don't know. I just created mine in October or January maybe. So I don't even know. I never had one before. So, yep, go ahead and do that. They're going to have the Vintage Cubes coming back for the event, turning 20. If you pay them $25 during the event, you'll have access to every single card with some exclusions. So that might be something to look into if you're wanting to tool around with some decks in an online fashion. Definitely be cheaper than Arena.
I'm talking about Arena's free to play.
Yes, it is. Free to play some janky decks.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, Arena is a cheaper addiction than MTGO is.
Yes, unless you want to stay competitive, and then that gets to be a little hairy.
You think staying competitive is more expensive on Arena than it is in MTGO?
Yep.
I mean, you got to buy the cards in MTGO.
Yeah, but then you can sell them when you don't need them.
That's not the buy-in, though. That's not how much money you're spending.
Well, yeah. So, okay. So here's the thing.
If I buy a $100 comic book, just because I can resell that comic book for $100 doesn't mean that I'm not down $100.
Yes, you're right. But through card rental services and stuff, I don't know. Yes, maybe.
Because the card rental service is going to cost you probably just as much in the long run, because you're going to be paying them a monthly fee practically, or weekly fee, or however much.
All right, so let me break it down. This is the way I view it. If you like to play one single deck and only play that deck, and it happens to be on Arena, then it's probably cheaper to be on Arena. But if you like to brew or try different decks and things like that, it's probably cheaper to get a subscription to like Mana Traders or something with MTGO. Either way, you're paying out the wazoo to play digital Magic.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the idea of owning something better in the long run.
Yeah.
But also, MTGO's infrastructure sucks. So
it does, and the cards don't hold their value like they do in paper.
Right.
So it just depends on the card, I guess. Some cards in paper are like $1 card, but you get them on MTGO and they're like $35, and you're like, what is going on here? I don't know why this. All right, so the other little bit of news, Unfinity, which was delayed from production issues and supply chain issues, yada, yada. They did give an official release date. It's October 7th, so get ready for those really fancy basic lands.
I love really fancy basic lands.
Because that's why you want to buy them. Oh, and I think they're rumored to have shock lands in them, too. Like, as like a special card in there.
Like legit shock lands? Or like
yeah, like... They'll be black bordered and everything. That's the rumor. I don't know if they've officially announced that. So I could be spilling crap.
They got to get people to buy those cards somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it'd be fun to take with a group of friends and just draft it. You
know? Those cards are fun and funny and they exist. But I don't, like, no one spends any serious money on those sets. Nobody looks to go out and get like some premier card from that set usually.
No. Nope. So they got to artificially put cards in there to make people buy them fancy basic lands and other treats. Makes sense. Or else why are they making them? We won't have a fun Unfinity set. I guess ignore them if you want them. If you don't, then buy them. All right, so that's it for the news. And I thought, since we have no moderator, we might be able to get into it. Going over we already know what the best cantrip in the formats are, and that's Expressive Iteration, hence the ban. I thought we could talk about the best versions of other cards in specific formats. What do you think?
Yeah.
And what better thing to start out with than counter spells? So I have here a list of counter spells that are available in the standard format. What do you think the best one is?
Standard format?
Standard. Yeah. So the idea is we're going to go over the standard ones, and then we're going to expand into Pioneer and then into Modern because they change. They could be the same. We don't know. Standard's got some slim pickings.
Well, I have two here that I do somewhat like.
All right, hit me with them.
I think if you're asking me which one of these is the best right now, it's Jawari Disruption.
All right, so Jawari Disruption is 1 blue and 1 colorless. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. And it also is a dual-faced card with the land on the back that comes into play tapped.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just, for the listeners here, when we're determining which the best is, we got to take account for the format, the mana cost, and like what it actually does. Obviously, the most powerful counterspell in a format might have a downside, or this one isn't less controller pays 1, where there might be one that just says counter target spell, which is obviously better, but it has a higher mana cost. So we're kind of sussing it out between.
Yeah, I mean, Jawari Disruption to me is just the most useful. As if you're in a situation where you don't need or can't use the counter spell, it could just be a land, but it only casts it only costs 2, so you can play it early. If you're playing it early, chances are your opponent's tapping out to play whatever they're playing anyway. So it can still be the counterspell you need it to be, but it can also be a land if you need it to be one.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that. I do, however, like Spell Pierce a whole bunch. The difference between the two is it's a non-creature spell, unless its controller pays 2, and it only costs 1 blue. So for me, it's between the two.
I think Spell Pierce. So Spell Pierce was the other one that I was going to say, but I think Spell Pierce has more limited uses than Jawari Disruption. I think Spell Pierce comes out of your sideboard in mirror matches or against instant sorcery heavy decks, but in standard there's not a lot of those right now, so it's really just coming out in mirror matches where you're playing against another control deck.
Yep. And specifically in standard. So Spell Pierce might gain value in a different format just because of the play patterns differently. Standard's a little bit slower. Spell Pierce becomes a dead card later on when your mana flooded out and they're always going to be able to pay 2. It becomes a dead card, which makes just Jawari Disruption kind of, I think, edge it out because you can just play it as the land.
Right.
And it's not a completely dead card. Some other highlights on here. They reprinted Negate, which is an old classic.
I think my next favorite one is Saw It Coming.
Yeah, and then
Saw It Coming early game. If I have the extra mana, I can float it out and have a 2 mana hard counter spell. But if I don't want to foretell it, still late game, it's a 3 mana hard counter spell.
Hard counter is important. I think it's the only hard counter in the format. Except Offer You Can't Refuse is it's a non-creature too.
Non-creature.
Yeah, so I think it's, as far as I know, that I looked through I compiled these lists from the metagame deck lists and what people were using. So there might be one floating out there somewhere that I don't know about, but I think the other one I like is Offer You Can't Refuse because as a trickster counterspell, so you counter target non-creature spell, and its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. It's 1 blue mana. The beauty of this card is that you counter your own spell, and you get treasure tokens. So I did like the flavor for that card.
I mean, it's not that beautiful because I guess it does allow you to ramp in later turns, but you're still spending 2 mana to get 2 treasure tokens, basically.
Yeah,
2 mana and 2 cards from your hand.
Right. So, but people are using this in their Charbelcher decks for Modern to help get more mana, so they can spin up, or like Storm decks can use it. It's kind of cool, but we're talking about standard here.
Okay.
And then there's also Obscura Charm, which only counters instant or sorcery spell, but it does have other modes on it that you can gain value from late game. So it's also a nice little card. Not super played, though. I did notice that. Not as played as I would have thought it was pre-release. But I'm finding a lot about what I thought about pre-release of New Capenna is actually a lot different. Ledger Shredder. Didn't see that one coming. All right, so we're in agreement. Jawari Disruption is currently the best standard counterspell?
Yeah, no, that's my opinion. It's the most useful, at least. I mean, that's not the quote-unquote best counterspell, obviously. It's counter unless you play one. But
it's the one that you would like. You need a counterspell to put in your deck. What are you taking?
Yeah,
that's the kind of the idea. Yeah,
that's what I would.
And then you might sub other ones based on like what the meta looks like at any given time. But just for a standard spell, you're going for that. All right, I agree. Now let's move to Pioneer. So we'll have all the same Pioneer, or all the same counter spells in Pioneer, but however, there is more. All right, so we got this list here. It's a lot different and a lot bigger. We have superstars like Dovin's Veto in here, blue and a white. this spell can't be countered. Counter target non-creature spell. It's good for counter-spelling wars, mirror matches, or just you're playing control and you happen to be in blue-white, which only happens in a control deck in Pioneer. But you get my point.
Yeah.
Let's see. Absorb.
Yeah. Absorb is probably my choice out of these. It's a hard counter spell for 3, but you gain the 3 life, so
Yeah.
chances are if you're running a counter spell in Pioneer, you're running control, the 3 life is super relevant.
Yep. So this is I like to think of this as just a regular old counter spell with a healing salve spliced onto it.
Yeah.
Because that's the mana you're paying for it. So I do like this one. The other one I really like is Mystical Dispute. Pioneer is this format that kind of affords you a little bit more of the color hate than, say, Modern. It's a slower format. There's like less efficient answers, so it's the cards that are more color hate have more value in Pioneer. That's the way I look at it, I guess. So Mystical Dispute is 2 and a blue. Instant, this spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a blue spell. Counter target spell unless its controller plays 3. So this is the like sideboard all-star. I don't know that you'd want to put Mystical Dispute in a main deck. It's just you side it in when you're playing a blue deck.
There was a time in the standard meta where Mystical Dispute was main board 4 of.
Oh yeah, I can see that, especially with how I didn't play during Throne of Eldraine, but
yeah,
I think that
say the rogue deck, it was a main board 4 of before the Uro ban and the Oko ban. It was a main board 4 of.
Yeah, those are both blue spells.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. You're like, nope, you got to pay 3, which you're not going to be able to because you played your Uro and your Oko as soon as you could. So, and that high tax of 3 is very, I think, important. So I do like that. But again, I like it because it's a sideboard. It's going to do what you need it to do. And you can play it in more decks. Like you can play it in an Izzet deck.
Yeah.
Whereas Absorb, you can't really because it's got the 2 colors.
Yeah.
Same with Dovin's Veto. Same with Drown in the Loch for that matter. I don't think this is the place for Drown in the Loch specifically.
I mean, rogues are a thing in Pioneer, aren't they?
Not in the like top meta.
Okay.
I think they've kind of got overcasted by other things. And then the other one in
Again,
here,
you're the Pioneer expert here, not
right?
me.
Hey, it's a pretty good format. Rewind. Nobody uses this card in Pioneer.
I use it in Historic all the time.
Dude, it's a good card.
Yeah.
But
the
I
thing
like it.
about Rewind is you have to be playing something that can capitalize on that mana. Yeah, like if you're just looking for a standard counter spell, it costs too much.
Right.
And so like you need to have something in your hand to play with the mana you get back from Rewind to make it worth it.
Right. So it's more likely you're going to counter somebody's counter spell or counter somebody's interaction on your turn.
Yeah.
Because then you get to untap and play your cards. Unless you had a whole bunch of instants that you're hiding after, on their turn to use it.
What does Pioneer Control even look like? Does it cast a lot of stuff on their own turn?
What do you mean? Like
I mean, like, Historic Control doesn't cast a whole lot of stuff on their own turn.
Oh, yeah. No, not really. It's mostly flash stuff. You might cast a Shark Typhoon instead of cycling it, but if you're going to cycle it, you're cycling it at the end of the opponent's turn.
So,
other than that, no. It's a lot of flash stuff.
I mean, you can still take advantage of it by not casting it on your turn. That's still
right
100% viable. The thing is just you want to use it in a way where you're going to be dropping something afterwards.
Yeah, so if you throw out you're
going to make your sharp token, basically.
Yeah. Right, yeah. Or flash in your one that makes you scry 2, draw a card. I forget the name of it. It's an enchantment. I do that a lot. Yeah, Rewind's a good card. I like it. I don't know if it's the best in the format.
Yeah, if I'm in blue and white, I'm going Absorb.
Yeah.
Every time. If I'm not in white, I think Mystical Dispute or Rewind are good choices.
Yeah, there's also one that's
Spell
cropping
Pierce
up.
is still here, so you still have that. I still think, again, I don't play Pioneer, but my guess is that's primary use is still the mirror match, so it's probably still a sideboard card.
Right. Yep, exactly. It's not main deck. However, this Censor card, it's actually starting to crop up more in decks just in the last week or so. It's 1 blue and 1 colorless, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1, and it has cycling for a blue.
Well, that's similar to the
Jawari Disruption.
Jawari Disruption, where it's there if you need it early game, but then late game, it still draws you a card.
Yeah.
It still has a use.
Yeah, I actually don't own any of these cards, and I was like, man, should I pick some of these up? Because actually that would be helpful in an Izzet deck. Especially when you want to fuel Treasure Cruise.
You know what else would be helpful for you in an Izzet deck?
What's that?
Being better at playing Magic.
Hey, Izzet makes you better at playing Magic. Just by playing it. You're like, oh, I'm awesome at Magic. And then honorable mention, of course, Izzet Charm. Red and a blue. Choose 1. Counter a spell. Non-creature spell unless the controller pays 2. So basically a Spell Pierce. Or Izzet Charm deals 2 damage to target creature. Or draw 2 cards, then discard.
Izzet Charm's pretty good.
Yeah.
The modal spells.
Lots of options.
Any modal spell, I'm about.
Yeah. Super good. I like them. The other honorable mention that I wanted to put here.
Okay, you could stop now.
Nope, Jace's Defeat.
Jace's Defeat can f*** off.
I just wanted to say it's like this is the most useless card that has ever existed.
Okay.
I mean, you still get a blue spell, but the extra part, I want to know how many times if it was Jace the Planeswalker spell, Scry 2, that actually got cast. It's probably pretty low.
I can't imagine. So you said you saw this in deck lists. Is that correct?
No. Okay. This was not in a deck list. I threw it in here as a gag. Okay. Honorable mention.
I see now.
Because it's ridiculous. I guess during this, whatever this set is, they printed 1 defeat of everybody, all the Planeswalkers against Nicol Bolas or whatever. And this is Jace's. I thought it was funny. Chandra's is deal damage. If you damaged a Chandra spell or a Chandra Planeswalker, then it did something. They all had something to do with the character.
I mean, I suppose there was a time period where Jace the Mind Sculptor was in everything.
That's true.
That might have. I still can't see playing it, but
no, this is really a bad card. But it's funny and flavorful. All right, so what are we going with? What do you think the best hands down card?
I mean, again, it depends on your colors, but Absorb followed by Mystical Dispute is my choice.
Okay, so Absorb's number 1 if you're playing Azorius. Otherwise, Mystical Dispute.
Yeah,
I get it. I'd probably take Mystical Dispute and Absorb. And actually, I'll do the same because it just makes sense that you'd want to play Absorb as the hard counter ability and the healing salve. All right, so let's move on to Modern.
This is the hard one.
Yeah.
In my mind, this is the hard one.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with, I guess, the big ones.
They're all big ones. What are you talking about? Which ones on here aren't big?
Okay, fair. So there is just regular old counterspell, and it's the one I actually didn't get it. I didn't put a picture of it for some reason. Nope, here it is. Sorry, guess I did, and I used the good art too.
Yeah.
This is the best counterspell art from Tempest. So
by all means, describe the art to the people listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
You picked the best art.
Yeah. Go look it up. It's from Tempest. You'll get it. 2 blue, counter target spell. Easy.
Yeah, no, it's still the classics are still good. Okay.
It's like the barometer in which you judge counter spells by. Is it more than 2 mana? Is it less than 2 mana? If it's 1 and a blue, that's technically better than 2 blues. But usually 1 and a blue comes with a drawback.
And there's a reason it doesn't get printed anymore.
Yes. It's
super
efficient. Super efficient. And then you have something like the other all-star in the format, Archmage's Charm. It's 3 blue. Choose 1 counter target spell. Target player draws 2 cards. Or gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. Love the modal. I use this in Modern, and sometimes you don't want to counter this spell. You want to just do the thing.
Oh, no, it's really good.
Yeah.
And Modern, there are a lot of fun converted mana cost things for you to steal that are worth it.
Oh, yeah, you're getting attacked with a 15/15 Urza Saga token. You're like, nope.
Death Shadow.
Yeah, Death Shadow. Yeah. It's pretty good.
Gain control of a 1 converted mana cost or less. It has saved my life multiple times.
Absolutely. I think I have no options. Then I look down and read that on my card and go, oh, yeah, that's a thing.
Multiple times you can use this to 2-for-1 people because you can gain control of something and block with it and kill something else they're attacking with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, love Archmage's Charm. And like I said earlier, Drown in the Loch gets more value in Modern. Since you're filtering through your graveyard, you got more fetch lands go in the graveyard consistently. So counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in controller's graveyard. And it also has the same thing, but for a creature too, with converted mana cost. So Drown in the Loch is infinitely better in Modern than it is in other formats, mostly because of fetch lands, I guess.
Oh, yeah, fetch lands. Fetch lands make everything better.
Yeah. You tend to, your Surveil triggers, your Connive triggers now that Ledger Shredder's a thing. All that stuff's filling the graveyard. You will see Spell Pierce also in main decks too, as a quick, because everything's so mana efficient in Modern that people are sitting there operating on 3 lands. So they cast a 2 land, they cast a 2 mana spell, and they don't have the 2 to pay for it. So Spell Pierce stays valid longer.
I assume Force of Negation still stays relevant too.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's pretty hard to argue with a spell you can cast for free.
Oh, yeah. So what's great about Force of Negation is that if you try to hard cast this, it's still only 2 blue and 1 colorless.
Right.
But it has the ability to, if it's not your turn, you can exile a blue card instead of paying for the spell's mana cost. So it lets you kind of... How many times have you been playing Control and you're like, I want to cast this card, but I need to leave counterspell open, so I'll wait. But Force Negation gives you that leeway to go ahead and take that chance. As long as, again, it is a non-creature. Yeah. And you get to exile it, which is super viable, super valuable with all the graveyard recurrence that happens in Modern too. So, yeah, Force Negation is definitely a top contender for sure, I think.
I mean, Cryptic Command. How can you not hate Cryptic Command?
Cryptic Command is really good. You get to choose 2. It costs 3 blue and 1 colorless. Choose 2, counter target spell, or return target permanent to its owner's hand, or tap all creatures your opponents control, or draw a card. So you get to pick 2 of those.
It's so versatile. It's so good.
And for 4 mana, you're still doing a lot, like picking the 2.
Yeah.
It's not like oh, I have to pay 4 mana for this. You're getting a lot of stuff. So unfortunately, I think the printing of Archmage's, I wasn't around when it happened, but the printing of Archmage's Charm, Cryptic Command isn't as used as much. It'll pop up here and there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Archmage's Charm has taken its spot.
Yeah.
It's just better in the meta that Modern has going for it than Cryptic Command is. Cryptic Command is slower.
Awesome.
And a lot of its modes are just less relevant at this point.
Yeah, so you rewind, and then you have Cryptic Command mana left up. Perfect.
Yes, for those instances when you need to counter 2 spells.
Right.
And you only need 8 mana to do it.
Hey, it's possible. Some of the other ones here, we got the Pact Negation. It costs 0 counterspell, but at the beginning of your next upkeep, you have to pay a total of 5 mana. If you don't, you lose the game. This is nice. I included this. It's definitely not going to win, but I included it because it's used in decks that don't use blue, because they counter the thing. Like if they got their combo going off and they just need this one piece and you counter it, it kills their entire game. So they have the Pact Negation in hand. Charbelcher is one of those decks that use this. Then they say, you don't kill my Charbelcher. I'm going to Pact Negation that, and it doesn't matter because I can't pay the blue, but I'm killing you this turn. So it's nice to give other decks that option. And then the
Fundamental Misstep also. Again, you can pay it for free. Since you can pay 2 life for it.
Yeah, the
Phyrexian mana. So it's something that people often do not expect because you're tapped out.
Yep.
And this can hit creatures, unlike Pact of Negation, or not Pact, sorry, Force of Negation.
Force of Negation, yep.
And so it can be used against anything, even when you're tapped out. And not only that, but just playing this, I know it's not running a lot of things, but just you play this one time, and when you're tapped out, and for the rest of your matches, your opponent is in that headspace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like...
that has value.
Yeah, no, 100%. Going after your opponent's headspace has value.
Mm-hmm. Like, uh-oh. Yeah, Mental Misstep is good. I can dig it. And then I also threw on here a couple of other ones. We won't talk about Tybalt's Trickery. Listen to our other podcast if you want to hear about that one. But it technically is a counterspell in red. The counterspell that is not a counterspell, but technically has the same effect. Veil of Summer costs 1 green. It's so confusing. But basically it means if you counter my stuff, you no longer counter my stuff. So I counter your counter. Draw a card if an opponent has cast a blue or black spell this turn. Spells you control can't be countered this turn. You and permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and from black until end of turn.
Yeah, no, this card's really good.
Yeah, it is. It is actually really good.
I really thought this card was banned.
No, not in Modern.
Not in Modern, just everything else.
Honestly, I think it was banned, and then they unbanned it, maybe. I've just heard some people talking about but it is not currently banned.
It's the best way to protect your stuff in green from blue.
Mm-hmm.
You get to draw a card. You get to, again, basically counter anything that they've cast. Either, because it doesn't have to be counter spells either. It could be black removal.
Right. You're like, you no longer, because the way it's because of the stack, right?
Yeah.
So this will resolve, and you cast in response, and this will resolve first, which then gives you hexproof.
And then the spell has no legal target. Yeah.
It's great. For a bunch of words that at first don't make sense, this is a really good use.
The card's crazy good. I mean, it is very specific because you have to be playing against those colors. Otherwise, it's just a very worthless card. But if you are playing against blue or black, it's an insane way to turn the tide in your favor.
Mm-hmm. I also did a little fun, the most bullshit counter spell of all time, Chalice of the Void. This card sucks. Actually, it's a very good card.
You hate losing to it.
Do you love losing to this card?
No, I don't like losing to it either. But I'm not bitter about it like you are.
And technically it's counters because it does counter the spell.
Oh, no, it does. You're right. It is. It's not a counter spell, but it is a counter spell.
Yes. So basically you pay mana, put some charge counters on this thing, and if if an opponent casts, or any player casts a spell with converted mana cost equal to the charge counters. Right. Then you counter that spell. That spell gets countered.
Yeah.
So it's hard to deal with. They can chalice lock you, and it really stinks to have done. But yeah, Chalice the Void
problem.
Yeah, definitely. I
know it works really well in Modern because of the small pool of converted mana costs that are used in Modern.
Yeah.
And that there are certain decks that just have like one or two different converted mana costs in their entire deck.
Yep.
But my memory of this card is always the time that it's spent in Standard.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to remember. It was a long time ago. Right before I quit. It would have had.
Because then they had the power relays, I think is what it was called, where you could move a counter from one thing to another.
Oh yes, yep.
And so Chalice could swing 3 different ways. So like if you had a Chalice out for 2, you could take a counter off of it and drop it down to 1, or you could add a counter to it and drop it up, pump it up to 3. And so you could put 2 Chalices out at like 2 and 5. And counter everything from 1 to 6 just by moving your tokens around, or by moving your counters around.
Yikes. That sounds even worse than just putting it on 1 and negating half your deck.
So in Standard, it was even kind of more of a terror. Luckily, that Standard was dominated by things that were not control, and Chalice could not on its own.
Right.
Angle Goblin Bidding and or
Affinity
or Bound Ravager or the Cycling deck.
Right. That was a good Standard, man.
I knew as soon as I remember watching the previews and seeing Eternal Witness and going, I'm making a Cycling deck for Standard.
Yeah. And honestly, that'll never happen again. Like, we won't have a power level of Mirrodin again. I know this is a side note, but traditionally the artifact heavy blocks were like super powered. The Urza's blocks, the Mirrodin blocks. And then they figured out they can add color mana to pay for artifacts.
Right.
Which then will now power down that power.
Right. Yeah, no, that's set. I mean, it wasn't just because it was the block right before it was super powered too. Like Goblin Bidding didn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
Because it was a tribal. Tribal's very powerful mechanic, and it's one of those things that kind of transforms exponentially. You pair the fact that there's a full tribal set within the full artifact set, and it was a nuts time to be playing Standard.
Yeah. I don't remember so much of that part of the Standard. I just remember how heavy Affinity was, but I also was playing Affinity, so probably didn't really care about much else. I didn't play competitively or anything. It was the
time in Magic that I remember the best for going to tournaments and playing against a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't gone to an actual paper tournament in a long time, but the digital tournaments here recently, it's like, here are 3 versions or there's 3 decks, and there was maybe minor differences between
Yeah.
Someone may run one card instead of another, but for the most
all
part,
using
there's like
Fable
3
the Mirror
decks.
Breaker.
Yeah, but like I remember in Standard then there was that cycling deck, Goblin Bidding, Affinity, White Equipment Aggro was.
Oh yeah, the Equipment Aggro was really rough too, man. Yeah.
There was still the Soldier deck from Legion was still kicking around sometime. You didn't see it very often, but it was still there. You had Black Affinity because you had the Nim. There were like 3 different versions of Affinity. There was Blue Affinity that had control and some draw spells. There was the Black Affinity that used the +1 for each artifact equipment.
Cranial plating,
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. That you could attach at instant speed.
Right. And there was the red one utilizing Shrapnel Blast on the Isochron Scepter.
Yeah.
Like, there were a lot of different, very powerful decks.
It was a fun time, man. And I felt like
all kinds of crazy shit on Isochron Scepters.
Dude, I honestly feel like Mirrodin Block was like the pinnacle of like my experience with brewing. You know, I felt like I had so many options and so many ways that I could take things, and it wasn't like the obvious, you know.
Yeah, I feel like it was the time that Standard was the most interesting.
I can get behind that. But I'm not sure I can get behind your number 1 pick for the counterspell. What do you think it is?
It's Archmage's
Modern
Charm.
counterspell. Archmage's Charm, even over regular old counterspell?
Yeah, no, it's still Archmage's Charm.
Yeah. Oh, man. I just know that when if I could only put 1 in a deck, I'd probably put Counterspell. But since I can have both, I'd prefer Archmage's Charm.
But why do you say that, though?
Because there have been times where I'm like holding an Archmage's Charm, but I don't have 3 blue mana up. Yeah. And I'm like, boy, I have 2. And I'm like, boy, I wish I had a Counterspell right now.
Okay, I guess that's fair. I just feel like, because you say, one of the ways you judge a counterspell is by judging it against counterspell.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if I judge Archmage's Charm against counterspell, Archmage's Charm is better.
Yeah, it has definitely more utility. But see, a lot of the times that I have that feeling where I'm like, I wish I had a counterspell, it's probably because I already cast a counterspell and was not playing correctly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I used the counterspell when I should have used the Archmage's Charm kind of thing. Because you should, if you have 3 mana, you should always use the Archmage's Charm and save the other counterspell for when you have it. But yeah. So yeah, Archmage's Charm is probably empirically better just because of the rest of the modal's abilities on it.
I mean, you can make an argument, I think, for Force of Negation.
Mm-hmm.
Because you kind of have to play it at this point. Like, there's not, that card is no longer, if you are in that color, that card is no longer an if.
Yeah, and it's like $70 or $80, so it's kind of sad because I want to.
It is a requirement to be in that color.
Unless let's put it this way: Izzet decks can get away with not having it. They might have 1 in the sideboard in Modern. But if you're not an Izzet deck or straight counter, like control deck, you need this card. Like,
even
so,
straight
for example,
control decks need it.
Yeah,
they need
definitely.
it for their counter battles. They need it for the mirror match. They need it.
Like the Cascade decks, you can't go without having this card because you spend all your mana to Cascade, and they're going to counterspell it. You need this card. You might as well not even play it if you don't have this.
So, like, while Archmage's Charm is my pick for the best counterspell, it's kind of hard not to make a case for Force of Negation because it is basically a requirement.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll say top 3. Top 3.
Top 3 are Archmage's Charm, Force of Negation, and Chalice. Okay, it's counterspell.
Counterspell, yeah. I will reflect those sentiments. I think I'm not going to fight you too hard on that. And then I just wanted to talk about the
for
greatest
a long time,
counterspell.
Counterspell wasn't in Modern. remember that's a recent addition to Modern.
Yeah, that's true. Modern Horizons 2.
Yeah. So
was reprinted.
There was a resurgence for Control there for a little bit, and then people realized that actually, you know what? A 2-mana counterspell is not that great anymore. Not when you have 1 mana removal for whatever it is that you would have counterspelled.
Right. All right, so we're going to go one more back. There's only a few, and they're the only answers. One so broken that it is illegal in Legacy and only exists in Vintage. It's Mana Drain. It is empirically better than Counterspell.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously. Mana Drain is empirically better than anything, I think. But.
Yeah, it's the best. It's only available in Vintage in Commander, but otherwise it's banned because it's 2 blue. It counters the spell, so it does exactly what a counterspell does. But at the beginning of your next main phase, add X to your mana pool, where X was the casting cost of that spell that you countered. That's crazy.
That you can put this on an Isochron Scepter.
Right, you sure can. Holy moly. Yeah. So that's probably the best counterspell ever printed, I would say.
Mana Drain on an Isochron.
And then there's a couple other Legacy staples that are really good. Days, originally printed in Nemesis, right? Yeah. 1 blue, 1 colorless. You may return an island you control to into your owner's hand instead of paying Days' mana cost. So again, free, but you return an island. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. So if you're playing a Legacy deck, you probably have this card in there if you're in blue.
Yeah.
Same with this next one, Force of Will. Kind of like Force of Negation, except it's counter any spell, not just a non-creature spell, and you have to pay 1 life and exile the blue card. So, definitely really good. It's just the hard casting of Force of Will happens less, because it costs 3 blue or 2 blue and 3 colorless. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on those. Those are the 3 counter spells of which to judge counterspell by.
And Pyroblast.
Oh yeah. I did put Pyroblast in here too because look at that, it's a red counterspell.
Yeah.
Red Elemental Blast pretty much does the same thing too, but
no, red Pyroblast is way better because you can destroy a blue permanent with it.
Yeah. Right. So this is counter target spell if it's blue, or destroy target permanent if it's blue. And red Elemental Blast is only counter spell. Correct? I think.
That is correct, if I remember correctly. And I'm 99% sure I do.
No, it still or destroys a blue card in play.
No. Wow. Oh, I guess I misremembered that.
All right, we're running 8 of these suckers. Just kidding. Yep, it's good. All right.
If you're playing blue, you're going to hate me.
All right, so that's the show. We did it. We ranked the counter spells. We gave you the best for each format.
Sure, Moderator Dave would have much worse opinions on the matter, but he's not here.
Yeah.
That's what he gets for missing. We don't get to hear his opinion on what counter spells he hates.
Right. Yeah.
Which is probably all of them.
Yeah, teach him to go on assignment again.
How dare he?
Yeah, he doesn't seem like he likes counterspells very much. He does like to just bolt people to the face. Probably gets upset when that doesn't happen.
His strategy is not counterspell conducive.
No, but it could be so much better if he just played Is It, and then he could do both.
If only.
Hey, I'm starting to think it's like the best color combination, the best 2-color combination.
I like playing Is It. It's up there for me.
It's definitely fun to play.
The original Niv Mizzet is one of my favorite cards of all time.
Let's talk about that for a second. Let me pull it up. I wasn't around playing when this was a thing, so
oh man,
forgive me. I know there's at least 2 of them. Is it? What's this? Okay, Does he have a
3 red? He's the
3 blue, 3 red Perrin?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I play with this in my thing in the ice deck for Pioneer.
Anytime that I did play Pioneer, or not Pioneer, Commander, this was the commander that I used.
Oh, I would play with him as a commander any day. 3 blue, 3 bread. 3 blue, 3 red, legendary creature, Dragon Wizard. This spell can't be countered. Flying. He's a 5/5. Whenever you draw a card, Niv Mizzet Perrin deals 1 damage to any target. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. I literally have sat with this card on the board and like drew a bunch of cards and then dealt damage.
Yeah, because a lot of times too, like if you're at cantrippy, you can just you cast Opt, you draw 2 cards, you deal damage. Like
Yep. And you're like, oh, scry, that's not going to get me. I'm not going to be able to cast that right now. So scry that to a bottom. Oh, wait, I'm going to draw a card.
Yeah.
And then, yep, it's really good. He's fun.
I wish I still had mine. I sold him though.
Yeah. And then Pioneer also has Niv Mizzet, the other one, the reborn one. It's kind of busted. You basically, when you put him out, he's one of each color. When you put him out, you reveal 10 cards off the top of your library. And then for each color pair, you put 1 of those into your hand.
Yeah.
So you get like, the deck's built around having multicolored cards like that. So you're just like, hey, I have these. I just refilled my hand with a bunch of interaction. Yeah. It's a pretty good deck.
Yeah.
Play more Is It, so that they can ban more cards, I guess, because people are playing too much Is It.
I can get more behind your play more Is It movement than your play more Pioneer movement.
Hey, don't knock it till you tried it.
I did try it.
Oh, well,
I'm still knocking
it. I'll force you to one of these days.
I'm sure.
Everybody will be playing. You'll be like, I guess I'll play it. When Explorer turns to Pioneer,
maybe once it hits Arena, you'll be able to get me.
There you go.
Probably will. Wow.
All right. Well, that's the show. You can find us at MPG Pod on Twitter. You can find me at BeNiceMPG. And you can send us emails. Tell us what your favorite Is It cards are. Or if your counterspells do not align with our counterspells, let us know at show@magicprovinggrounds.com.
So feel free to email us and make up a story for what Dave is doing on assignment.
Yeah. Yes, that'll be fun. Because he's supposed to be checking out the local card shops in North Carolina. But I don't think that's what he's doing. Didn't sound like it.
Got a microphone on him somewhere? Fine on him?
It's awful windy out here. On location.
Well, see you next week.
See ya next week. Oh, wait, I'm getting something in my earphones. We're getting a call from Moderator Dave. Moderator Dave, are you there?
Yeah, I'm down here on assignment in North Carolina.
Oh, how's it going?
It's going pretty good.
New scoops on the Magic scene?
Yeah, turns out that Arena plays real good on the toilet down here too.
The toilet? You're supposed to be checking out the local game stores.
What?
Can't you do Arena from home on your toilet like you do normally? You're supposed to get out there, on the beach, the boardwalk. There's card shops on the boardwalk.
You told me to come down here and scope out the Magic scene like I do at home, and I just play from the toilet. I'm very clear about this.
All right, I hung up on him. Anyway, Dave,